Yes, pray for them and pray for us too. Hey, there seems to be a real mix of kids these days. They seem to be, I call them kids. You know, they're not really kids, but they are. They're definitely youth. They seem to be either absolutely brilliant and taking the world by storm and being creative and problem solving, or they're absolutely millennials. So we have to figure out who is who before we start handing out responsibility. Just like in that song, which is by Micah Tyler. If you've never seen him online, what he does is that's all him. So he does 4 or 5 different recordings, all of him doing different tones of the song, and then he merges them together. Quite interesting, right? And how creative. That is very good. And you know what? He probably has quite a career doing that. People who, although things are changing as we're getting more knowledgeable about how invasive social media is, a lot of people still use that as an income. You know, that's the thing. We have to realize that we've come to this time in our life and in our world where we have more people than we have jobs. Times are changing. We need to get creative. I was just talking to a young guy about that yesterday. And, he had high hopes and he was talking about all the things that he was going to do. But I don't know that he's ever really had a legit job. And so, it was good that he was being positive and had a good outlook. But you have to be really realistic and start looking outside the box. And looking for new things, looking for, people are doing videos, people are doing, going back to the basics. They're starting to create stuff, and they're starting to realize that there's so many broken things around, you don't want to get sucked into all that stuff. It's like the kids that go back to school, and they get all the debt, and the parents get the debt, and there's no jobs at the end. They go through, and they're passionate at the beginning, but they go through and at the end maybe there's not a job there for them, but what is there for them is debt. So you want to pick very carefully. If you're going to go back to school, I'm really thinking trade. Go for a trade these days. That's where it's at. A trade over a career. That's where the money is. That's where the jobs are. We're always still building, right? We're always still going to be building stuff. So it is time for the good news, one of my favorite times of the day. So thank you for joining me for that. Lots of good stuff going on in the world. So this is really cool. Brian Ortega. How often does a teenage street fighter, no less, 4 times expelled from school, turn his life around and start giving the love he never got as a kid? Brian Ortega grew up in LA with 13 brothers and sisters, yet had no champions in his corner. But that's not the case anymore. The one thing falling in with the bad crowd did for Ortega is inspire his purpose. Because he loved to fight, he was drawn at 13 to the famed Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy. He asked the owners if he could clean the mats, wash towels, help in any way possible in exchange for lessons in the Brazilian martial art. Later, he found a pair of mentors and started training in MMA. While some athletes have fancy facilities and high-tech equipment, Ortega wanted to show the world that he could make it happen from a tiny one-car garage, and show the world he did. But the best part about this young man is his love of giving back. I want to be the person who stands for the people that need help, he says in an inspiring video. For 10 years, he's made an impact in his community, volunteering to give surfing experiences to kids with cystic fibrosis and going on a nationwide tour of children's hospitals. Even though he has earned well over $100,000, the 27-year-old is still driving a 20-year-old car without heat or air conditioning. He did, however, just spend $20,000 to set up the charitable Brian Ortega Foundation. He recently received the Hispanic Athlete of the Year award, and thanks to his unrelenting hard work, the UFC championship title is in his sights. Currently undefeated at 14-0, having beaten second-ranked former champion Frankie Edgar on Saturday in Las Vegas, He will soon compete to become the world featherweight UFC champion. I was down and out, but was lucky enough to have good people come into my life. I want to do that for kids who are at risk of going down the wrong path and help steer their energy into something positive, says the fighter. You know, if everybody who's established themselves could turn around and just help a couple people, what a better world we would live in, don't you think? You know, like, this is a role model. This is absolutely awesome, and that's what we all need to do. Very, very cool. So we've been talking a lot about, we're always talking a lot, aren't we? About environmental issues and global warming and fossil fuels and all sorts of stuff. You know, we talk about it, then we go back to what we're doing and we forget about it again. Because we expect other people to fix our problems, which is not realistic, but people are starting to step up to the plate. So this is pretty cool. In a landmark turn of environmental diplomacy, the global shipping industry has taken a stance against climate change by pledging to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2050 compared to the 2008 levels. The shipping and aviation industries have previously been excluded from climate talks because they range across international territories, rather than being nationally based. But according to the BBC, the shipping industry could be called the world's sixth biggest emitter of greenhouse gases, making it roughly equal with Germany. Larger countries such as Brazil and Saudi Arabia were reluctant to enforce any emission cuts, while smaller countries in the European Union were keen on pursuing 70% to 100% emission cuts. But the 50% pledge, which was established during the International Maritime Organization talks in London earlier this week, was considered a fair goal to set for all nations involved. The Environment Minister of the Marshall Islands said of the concluded talks, "To get to this point has been hard, very hard, and it has involved compromises by all countries, not least by vulnerable island nations like my own, who wanted something far, far more ambitious than this one. This is history in the making. If a country like the Marshall Islands, a country that is very vulnerable to climate change and particularly depends on international shipping, can endorse this deal, there is no credible excuse for anybody else to hold back." Latak Lim, the Secretary General of the International Maritime Organization, reportedly said, "This initial strategy is not a final statement, but a key starting point." O'Leary, who is a legal analyst of the Environmental Defense Fund of Europe, said, "The shipping sector's greenhouse gas emissions reduction target represents an important step forward." The International Maritime Organization has been talking about climate change for 20 years, but the strategy agreed this week marks the beginning of a focused debate about the policies and measures that will help the shipping sector modernize and regain the status of a clean and efficient mode of transport. The target falls short on ambition, but should be sufficient to drive policy development and consequently investment in clean fuels and technology. EDF remains committed to working with stakeholders, including those in the industry, to find ways that they will work in order to peak shipping emissions as soon as possible. So at least, you know, baby steps are still steps. So that's good. We're moving in the right direction. And then my last story today is an animal story. And again, you know, it all starts with somebody doing something. It's got to start somewhere, right? Animal activist Mark Ching has just announced the exceptional news that he successfully secured an agreement with Gupo Meat Market in South Korea to close their slaughterhouses. The historic agreement calls for the owners and association that run Gupo Meat Market, which has been slaughtering animals for more than a century, to not only close their dog meat slaughterhouses, but all of them, including chicken, duck, and rabbit slaughterhouses. We reached a formal agreement that we will work together to shut the Gupo Meat Market slaughterhouses down, bring in new business, or teach current ones how to do something different, while redeveloping the area, encouraging other slaughterhouses to do the same, said Ching, who personally facilitated the deal with Gupo and the association yesterday in Busan. By doing this, we are starting a new era of change, making history and presenting a positive solution for the future. Ching, the founder of the Animal Hope and Wellness Foundation, explains that while many local and international advocacy groups have lobbied and petitioned for the closure of Gupo's meat market in the past, those were hostile meetings based in anger and threats, noting that the owners of Gupo Meat Market and the association said this was the first time ever someone had come asking how we can work together. Haha, that, my friend, is key. While the process of emptying the cages still needs to be presented to the government, the hard part is over, getting the dog meat traders themselves to want to become something else, continued Ching, who made international news last year for rescuing hundreds of dogs from the 2016 Yulin Dog Meat Festival. So, that is absolutely awesome. But I just want to remind everybody, you know, there's these big things going on, which is absolutely awesome, but you have some control as well. Where you put your money, what you support, you know, talking about these slaughterhouses for the animals. I saw some people shared some pictures on Facebook recently. They'd gone to Kentucky Fried Chicken and they'd got some chicken pieces and they had no idea what chicken pieces they were. So they were like, absolutely, because it's not real chicken. Oh my gosh. So here they are, they're showing these pictures, and this is people. This is just the way people are sometimes. They go, they buy this stuff, they saw it, they realized it was not part of a traditional chicken that we know. They took pictures of it, $10 says they still ate it, and they probably still went back another day on Toonie Tuesday or whatever it is these days and got more. This is where our power is. And I'm laughing because it just seems insane. It's like, isn't that an Einstein quote? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. You know that's not real food. You know that is factory prepared chickens. I don't even know if they have heads anymore. Like, this is such a bizarre world that we live in. So your power, my friends, go to a local market, you know, like we talk about, and I realize we have to have, you know, shipping. I get that. I get we have to have freight. I get all that stuff. You know, we got to have stuff, but you have control. Go back to shopping local. Go back to supporting your mom and pop. You know, when we were on our way here to Bottoms Up, my daughter, she's got a 8-month-old baby, and so Gemma, she's making her food for her. Well, Sarnia Produce right here in beautiful Point Edward. She's been going there, getting her stuff to make the food, supporting local, right? We go to a butcher. We don't go to the grocery store anymore. Like, these are all decisions that you can make for yourself. You'll live longer. You're supporting local. Like, it's win, 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 win. So those are different ways that you can help improve your own life. The stuff that you're putting in your body, you take more control, because I don't know what's in those chickens either. So you're taking back control. You're powerful with your money. Every dollar you have is your vote for what you want in your life. So just think about that. But anyways, I could babble all day, and that's not what we want. So that's your good news. All those articles will be posted on the Positive Power Facebook page for you to check out at your earliest convenience.